Hi everyone, my name is Kelly Hines and I'm the Collections Assistant for the DuSable Museum of African American History. I want to thank you so much for joining us today for Mondays at the Du. We had a wonderful Black History Month and we just want to say thank you to everyone who came out to any of our events or visited the museum during that time. And we're going to continue that role and that excitement into Women's History Month, which is this month, the month of March. So we're going to be celebrating women's contributions throughout history. And specifically, I'm going to talk to you today about our founder, Dr. Margaret Burroughs. She was an artist, an educator. She influenced many creatives on the south side of Chicago and throughout the United States. And she was really a force to be reckoned with. So we're going to talk a little bit about her history, and I'm going to show you a piece of her artwork, which should be really exciting. So you'll get a little bit of a behind-the-scenes view of what we have in our collection at the museum. If you'd like to call in with a question or comment at any time during the show, please feel free to do that. Our phone number is 312-738-1400. You can also call 312-738-1060, and our operators will be more than happy to take your call. If you want to learn more about the museum, you can check out our website at www.dusablemuseum.org, or you can give us a call at 773-947-0600. You can also stop by for a visit. Our museum is open Tuesdays through Sundays. On Tuesdays through Saturday, we're open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Sundays, we're open from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. And we're located at 740 East 56th Place, Chicago, Illinois, zip code 60637. We do have a couple of upcoming events for the museum and that are also sort of going around in the South Side that I wanted to share with you guys. So remember, you can always find our events on the website at the events page or through our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find us on any of those at DuSable Museum. So upcoming, we have a couple of things. First is the Chills Teen Night, which will be on March 16th from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. The Chills is the first in a series of 3 traveling teen nights brought to you by the Yollocalli Arts Reach and the DuSable Teen Council. So there's going to be lots of art activities, there's going to be an open mic, food, drinks, lots of fun and community, and it's free for everyone. So if you are a teen or you have a teen in your life, please consider coming out for that event. The Chills is going to be celebrating a year of creative youth in Chicago, and it's thanks to the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events Incentive Ovate funding, so that should be great. We also have an author talk coming up on March 15th from 6:30 p.m. to 9 p.m., and this is Letters from Langston. You can contact the museum for tickets, and it'll take place in the Ames Auditorium. Authors Mary Louise Patterson and Evelyn Louise Crawford will share their stories and insights about Langston Hughes and sign copies of their book, Letters from Langston. So this will give some personal insight into Langston Hughes' life, his experience through the Harlem Renaissance, his relationships with close colleagues and confidants, so it should be very interesting. And at this event, our collections department, which I work for, is going to be there with one of our artifact items, which will be Langston's baptismal gown. So you can come in and see that, and we'll also have some other archival material, and it should be a really great event. Also this month, we have a Professor Reed Forum. That's going to be March 17th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. and it'll be in the IBLA auditorium at the museum. And on March 23rd at 7 p.m. will be 11 Jazzy Divas, which is a musical celebration for Women's History Month. So definitely check that out. It's going to be featuring Yvonne Gage, Maggie Brown, Greta Pope, Lynn Jordan, Frida Lee, Joan Colazzo, Felina Bunn, Takora Rogers, Margaret Murphy Webb, Bobby Wilson, Julia Huff, and many others. So definitely check that out. Also, there's a community event going on that I would highly encourage people check out if they have the time. It's called Lifting as They Climb, Mapping a History of Black Women in Chicago's South Side, a self-guided tour. And this event will be going on March 17th from 2 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. at the Arts Incubator, which is at 301 East Garfield Boulevard in Chicago, Illinois. So not too far from the museum. And so scholars Miriam Kaba and Essence McDowell are celebrating their new book. This publication features a number of Black women who contributed to the development of Chicago from the mid-19th century to today. And it tells a story of Black women activists and artists who lived and worked in Chicago's South Side by taking readers on a tour of relevant landmarks and locations. There's going to be 33 main locations, mostly centered around the South Side, as well as 10 other additional sites. And the publication tells the story of many prominent women, including Marjorie Stewart Joyner, Mary Richardson Jones, Ida B. Wells Barnett, our founder, Margaret Burroughs, Alice C. Browning, Gwendolyn Brooks, Elder Lucy Madden Smith, Mary G. Evans, Bessie Coleman, Fannie Barrier Williams, Nora Holt, and many others. There will also be an organized tour on March 18th, noon to 5 p.m., and that includes travel time. And they'll be visiting a bunch of locations that they mention in the book and a lot of the landmarks. So space is limited for that, but you can sign up online here at Eventbrite. You can reach that at lift, L-I-F-T, climb, CLIMB.eventbrite.com. And if you just search Lifting as They Climbed, I'm sure the event will come up, but that'll give you lots of information and show you how to RSVP for the tour and for the event on the 17th. So that should be a really great time. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of our events, we're going to talk a little bit about Margaret Burroughs. First, I'm going to share a little bit of her history with you all for those who may not know. And then I brought a couple of pictures along, and then, like I said earlier, we're going to take a look at one of her artworks. So, Dr. Margaret Burroughs is one of the many people who traveled to Chicago during the Great Migration. She was born in St. Rose, Louisiana in 1917. We celebrated her centennial just this past year. But she moved up here with her family and soon started a career in education. She's often referred to as an educator and an artist. And she started her education with earning her teacher certificate. And then in 1937, she finished from the Chicago Teachers College, where she got her teaching degree. Later, she attended the Art Institute of Chicago, where she got her bachelor's degree and her master's degree in 1946 and 1948, respectively. And so that's an amazing accomplishment when you think about what was going on at the time, especially for women. While a lot of Black women especially worked outside of the home, which wasn't maybe the norm for white women during this period, we were often relegated to service jobs or domestic jobs. So cooking, cleaning, taking care of other people's children. So to have the opportunity to teach and to attend a predominantly white institution like the Art Institute and pursue her artistic passion was really an amazing thing. And at the age of 22, which was very young, Margaret Burroughs, along with a group of other Southside artists, decided that they wanted to give back to the community. They wanted to provide a place where thinkers, artists, creatives could come together, share ideas, and teach. And so that is when she developed the Southside Community Arts Center. And the Southside Community Arts Center is one of our sister organizations, and you can also visit them. Their website is www.sscaartcenter.org. Their hours are Monday and Tuesday. They are closed, but they're open from noon to 5 on Wednesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturdays, and 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays. And they're located at 3831 South Michigan Avenue at Chicago, Illinois, zip code 60653. So the Southside Community Arts Center was an amazing hub for, as I said, artists of all types to come and gather and workshop. So that included a range of artistic mediums. So there were photography studio sessions that they did. There were painting programs, there were music programs, writing workshops, including literature and poetry. So it was really a great place for people to have a creative outlet and foster their passions. And you know, a lot of the time when we think of Black art in the past, we think Harlem Renaissance, right, in the 20s and 30s. Well, there were artistic renaissance going on in major cities all over the country. And so this was sort of a hub for what was going on the south side of Chicago. Another amazing thing about Dr. Burroughs and her experience with the Southside Community Arts Center was that it was one of the few institutions that were funded by the WPA. So during the 40s and 30s, President Roosevelt instituted a lot of programs to sort of bolster the economy and get people out working again and provide opportunities for individuals. And so the Southside Community Arts Center was one of the institutions that received this funding, and it was a super big deal. And so I have a wonderful black and white photo here with me that shows the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt, visiting the Southside Community Arts Center when it was opened. So this was widely covered around the nation. Tons of news networks were there to cover this event, and it was really well attended. And the SSCAC, the Southside Community Arts Center, is the only African American arts center of its kind that has remained continuously open, that was initiated under the WPA. So that's amazing that this institution is still alive and kicking. They do amazing events. They host wonderful talks, and really you can make an evening of it. I would definitely suggest coming and visiting the DuSable Museum, hitting up the Southside Community Arts Center. They're not very far apart, and they both have amazing collections, both featuring both works by Margaret Burroughs. Lots of archival photos as well can be found at the Southside Community Arts Center and at the DuSable, and you will learn a ton from both institutions. So I also want to show you a quick photo of Black patrons who visited the Southside Community Arts Center soon after its opening. And I just love this photo. I hope you all can see that well. But everyone is dressed up, dressed to the nines, showing out for this, momentous occasion. And I love pictures like this because they really bring history to life in a way. So it's one thing to just talk about it, but to see people at an event and how excited they were is really fantastic, and moving. So I love these photos. So in 1950, a little while after starting the Southside Community Arts Center, Margaret Burroughs met her husband Charles, who was a poet and founder of the Associated Negro Press, which was modeled on the Associated Press, and it played an important role in providing African American focused news and information throughout the United States. And in 1961, Dr. Burroughs and her husband jointly founded the DuSable Museum. They founded it in their home, which is actually located right across the street from the Southside Community Arts Center. So again, You can come to the South Side, visit a lot of awesome institutions that Margaret Burroughs had a hand in, and make an entire evening out of it. And so I have a picture that I took last fall of the Burroughs family home, and this is where the museum was originally started. And it's a beautiful Southside brownstone mansion. Our collections manager, Kate Swisher, and I have been making the rounds trying to visit lots of institutions and historical sites on the South Side that our museum has a relationship to. And so we had a wonderful evening where we went and visited both the Southside Community Arts Center and the home. So there's a great sort of peek at that. And again, like I said, they're actually across the street from one another. So it's very easy to take some time and, see both of them. So Dr. Burroughs was running this museum out of her home, and as it got more traction, it needed to expand. There's only so much you can fit into your home, even though this is a pretty big house. I think you and I would both agree that running a history institution or a public institution out of your house could get a little wild after a while. So in 1973, the DuSable moved to its current location in Washington Park. And so we've been there for quite some time. Luckily, the museum was able to strike a deal with the Park District, and so we've been there ever since, and it provided a great opportunity for the museum to expand, especially considering there were very few African American history museums. The DuSable was one of the first, and to have an opportunity to control an institution where Black people could come and have some control and agency over the stories that were told about us, over our own histories, taking care of our own artifacts, making sure that children in the community were learning lessons about their history and their past and their ancestors, allowing people a place to host events and commune with one another. All of that was super important and very vital throughout the mid-20th century, so the 50s and 60s. And into the 70s. And they obviously parallel the larger civil rights movement. So all of that is super exciting. It's amazing to think that this woman was such a go-getter. She didn't let sort of societal pressures stop her from doing what she wanted to do and fulfilling a need that she saw in the community. That doesn't mean it wasn't difficult, but it certainly is an inspiration for us today. I know there are plenty of young people, regardless of gender, boys, girls, whatever, who have passions that they want to pursue or see a need within their community and want to fulfill that role. And I think Margaret Burroughs is a great example of that. Let's take a look at our item. Dr. Burroughs was a prolific artist, and she worked in a lot of different mediums. She painted, she sketched, she was an avid writer, she wrote poetry, but she is most prominently known for her block prints. And today I have brought in one of her linoleum block prints. This block print is called Beauty in Black. And we recently had it on display. If you were able to see our floating museum exhibit, you may have gotten a chance to take a peek at this. But I wanted to bring it in, and just in case there's anyone who hasn't seen it, and we can get a up-close look, and I can tell you a little bit about this art process. So I'm just going to grab my gloves. As I mentioned at the beginning of the hour, I work in our museum collections. So I deal with storing all of our artifacts. I do cataloging for all of our artifacts, inventorying. If, say, a curator or a research guest wants to come in and look at something that we have in our collection, I'm the one who goes in and grabs it for them. and takes care of things. And so anytime we're working with anything in our collections, whether it be a historical artifact or a piece of fine art, we want to make sure that we're wearing our gloves. We have a lot of oils that come off on our hands, and we don't want to leave any of that on the objects. Those oils can actually corrode artifacts and pieces over time. So we want to keep these pieces of art safe and in great condition for future generations. So we always make sure we wear our gloves. And then I also, as you might be able to see, have the block print on a piece of ethafoam. Ethafoam is just basically a padding material that doesn't contain any harsh chemicals that will damage the item, and so we just want to make sure we create that barrier. So let's take a look at this. Oh, okay, let's zoom us out, see if we can get a little bit of a better view. Okay, and I'm going to tilt it up because it looks like we're having a bit of sheen on the surface of the block print. So I'm just going to tilt it up for you all. There we go. So as you can see, this is a beautiful piece, and it features 5 black women in a very stylized design. With various hair textures and expressions, and a lot of Dr. Burroughs' artistic works featured black women. And I think that's really wonderful because oftentimes throughout art history or specialized art history or art collecting practices, there's a lot of focus on men. And when women were featured, whether women artists or women as the subject of the art, oftentimes these women had very little agency, right? They were designed and depicted in a way that was meant to maybe highlight just their looks and their aesthetic, but no real life was given to them. And so a lot of Dr. Burroughs' works are really wonderful to me because they are very natural feeling, and they highlight women as real individuals and as people. And so you'll see a lot of black women depicted in her work. And so I'm sure a lot of you are wondering, well, this is really interesting. How does this work? How is this made? Well, this piece is on a large wooden block with a piece of linoleum over the top. And essentially the artist will first, most times, draw up a sketch of the item that they want to depict. And then they go in with a carving tool and they carve the linoleum block. And so then you end up with this piece here. Now this block is used to make artistic prints. So while most collectors and I do consider the block itself a piece of artwork, it's actually used to make prints on paper. So once this block is carved and lacquered to protect the surface, ink is applied over the top, and then the block is pressed onto a sheet of paper, and then that print becomes the artistic artwork. So you've probably seen a number of artistic pieces that use this sort of technique, and this is, like I said, what Dr. Burroughs was most famous for. Nice. So now that we got a chance to take a look at that, I'm just going to slide it to the side. Great. So again, we're coming towards the end of our show, but we still have time for questions or comments. So if you do have a question, again, feel free to call in. Our number is 312-738-1060. I'd be happy to answer any questions about Dr. Burroughs or her artworks. Lately, we have had an amazing time actually re-looking at her collections. She not only had a prolific career as an artist, but she also was an avid art collector. And so lately we've been documenting all of the works associated with her. A lot of her friends were artists that depicted her in their artworks, which is really amazing. She had a lot of close relationships with other women artists. For example, Elizabeth Catlett, who was a well-known sculptor, she and Margaret Burroughs became very close, and they actually spent a lot of time together in Mexico. During the 1950s and 60s, during the age of McCarthyism, a lot of left-thinking political activists felt the need to leave the United States. And so during that time, Elizabeth Catlett and Dr. Burroughs spent time in Mexico and actually did a lot of work doing printmaking while they were visiting. So, you know, Dr. Burroughs touched a lot of individuals in the Southside community. She gave a lot of artists their first opportunity to display their work at the Southside Community Art Center, and then to have their work later displayed at the DuSable Museum. So she's definitely an inspiration, and I look forward to all of the things we have coming up to celebrate her. As I mentioned earlier, last year was the centennial of her birth. This year we do have an exhibit coming up. It's called Southside Holdings, and it's going to run from September of this year through March of 2019. And that exhibit is going to focus on Dr. Burroughs, her work, but more the relationship between how her influence changed the arts scene in Chicago during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. So we're going to have work by her that we haven't had displayed before on display. We're going to have work by contemporary artists who work with Dr. Burroughs, both at the Art Institute and in other capacities. And we're also going to try our best to feature contemporary artists. Because her legacy continues today. There are a lot of arts institutions and arts programs that wouldn't be around today without her influence and support. And so we're going to have some contemporary artists come in who work under her tradition or were inspired by her, and they're going to contribute their artworks to this exhibit. So I hope you guys will keep an eye out for that. Definitely check out our website for more information. Check out our social media platforms. Again, we're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And also on Instagram, definitely look out for our series called the DuSable Storeroom. And we post every now and then with some behind-the-scenes images of our collections department. So sometimes you'll get tips for how we care for collections items. So if you have any items at home that you want to learn how to take care of, hashtag DuSable Storeroom. We'd be happy to answer any questions or give you some tips or advice. And we also show items like this linoleum block. We show items that aren't currently on display, but you get a nice behind the scenes peek at sort of what we do in the vast collection that we have. We have over 13,000 items in our collection, and we're inventorying new things every day. So definitely check that out and look out on Instagram for that series. So we're wrapping up to the end of our show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you'll come and visit the museum. We want to take the time to thank the folks over at CAN TV for having us here. We also want to thank the staff at the DuSable Museum. And we're going to be here next Monday and every Monday through the end of March. So definitely make sure you tune in. Again, if you want to visit the museum, you can check out our website. All of our information is on our website at www.dusablemuseum.org. Or if you have any questions about any of our upcoming events or how to get tickets or to reserve space for larger groups or anything of that sort, you can definitely give us a call. Our phone number is 773-947-0600, or you can stop by at 740 East 56th Place, Chicago, Illinois, 60637. Thank you again so much for joining me. I had a great time with you all today, and we will see you guys next week. Bye, and happy Women's History Month.